This is a First Coast News Plus special presentation. Unsolved. Now, here's First Coast News cold case journalist, Katie Jeffries.
Gabriel Dvau was on the cusp of a bright future. He was going into his last semester in college when he came home for a short visit. But his life was taken in an Arlington parking lot, leaving his family shattered. Detectives say people know what happened, and those who spoke to them in the beginning have gone silent.
Where do I start?
Rose Dvau lights up when she talks about her son, Gabriel.
I would hear the door open and I would run down the stairs and I would say, "There's my brand new baby boy." And he would bear hug me, pick me up, twist me around, and he'd say, "Hey, pretty lady. Hey, Mom."
Before he was a college student who could pick her up off her feet, he was her little boy. She calls Gabriel her miracle baby because at 10 weeks pregnant, she was told by doctors there was no heartbeat and given medication to end the pregnancy. But 2 weeks later at a checkup, Gabriel was still there, heartbeat and all. He grew into a little boy who loved Winnie the Pooh.
So needless to say, when he was old enough, our first trip was to Disney to have breakfast with Tigger.
And then a young man who was a standout football player at Paxson.
He would smile and the entire room would just start laughing because he brought in such positive energy and such love.
Then to Valdosta State, getting his degree in healthcare administration, a future of opportunity ahead of him. Then came November 2nd, 2022. A semester out from graduation, Gabriel came home to visit his parents. Rose says he told her he was going to a park to meet someone and would be back. He gave her a kiss on the cheek and walked out the door.
And the view that I saw the next time I saw my son, no mother should have to see.
Was it at the morgue at the hospital?
It was at the hospital.
At 23 years old, Gabriel Dvau was dead.
To this day, we have very limited information as to what really occurred.
Detective Travis Oliver with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office walked us back through the case.
So here we have the victim's car.
He says just before 7 p.m. that night, Gabriel arrived at the Carolina Arms apartment complex on Justina Road, parking not in a space, but in the middle of the lot, leaving the car on.
So this is an indicator to us that I'm jumping out of the car, meeting someone in the parking lot, and then attempting to go back to my car.
Shell casings indicate the shooter was back near this tree in the parking lot. Gabriel was shot multiple times as he was going back towards his car. Witnesses recalled seeing vehicles scatter.
The problem that the detectives have had is, are those cars leaving because they're suspects, or they're leaving because they're shooting in the complex?
No robbery, no surveillance. And Detective Oliver says those who initially spoke with police have gone silent.
There was at least one person that the police were dealing with that was providing information, and at some point they just went cold turkey. They was afraid of retaliation, but we know that there's more than one witness.
He says they have identified some persons of interest and have programs in place to help protect witnesses that come forward. And this case will come down to those witnesses.
Come forward and tell us what you know so that your information could connect to one of the cars that's leaving and give us the missing piece of the puzzle that we need.
Rose Dvau says in the days after Gabriel's murder, the grief felt so crushing she couldn't move.
But I vowed when I got up that I wouldn't stop my fight for justice for my son.
And is pleading for someone to come forward. Her message now is to other mothers who may know something.
Look at your child. And when you look at your child, think about mine. My son had a right to live. So if you know something, if you're a mother, a grandmother, and you know how much you love your child, I love mine too.
If you know anything about the murder of Gabriel Dvau, contact Crime Stoppers and you can remain anonymous. If you're worried about retribution, contact the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and tell them that. And detectives can work with you on a plan to keep you safe and get the information to solve this crime. Katie Jeffries, along with photographer Cole Echeverria, First Coast News, on your side. This case has an expansive timeline spanning more than 3 decades. And though Melinda Holder's case has sat cold for years, a Green Cove Springs police detective says it's heating up, and people are talking about it once again. Time is a constant, ever moving forward. But to understand Melinda Holder's case, you have to go back more than 3 decades to 1989.
It's a massive puzzle. Just one piece slowly being put in at a time.
A puzzle detective Cora Milliken with the Green Cove Springs Police Department is working to put together. It begins in January of 1989. Melinda Holder, a mother of 5, was living in Green Cove Springs. After she wasn't seen for several days, her mother, Teresa Plummer, told officers she was worried and said Melinda was last seen at her apartment on Love Drive. After a brief search, officers didn't find her, and Miss Plummer pulled back on the missing persons report, saying she'd heard her daughter may have gone with some friends to St. Petersburg.
So from that January to June timeframe, nobody had seen her. So that was very unusual and concerning to the family.
She was officially reported as missing in June of 1989. There had been a report of a possible sighting of Melinda Holder at the Mall Grove Hotel, located just down the road from her apartment, now the site of an empty lot. But that sighting was unconfirmed. Then came December 10th, 1989.
Just seeing the emptiness speaks volumes. You know that something terrible happened here.
Detective Milliken walked us back out to the site of 404 Harrison Street, an empty tree-grown lot today, but more than 3 decades ago was the site of an intense house fire. The next day, December 11th, 1989, as the fire marshal was investigating, he found human bones and what appeared to be the signs of gasoline.
The way it was used was that in the room where Miss Holder's body was recovered, that's where the fire had started.
But at the time, investigators had no idea whose remains had been found. There wasn't much that could be done to identify the body until 30 years later, 2019, with advancements in mitochondrial DNA testing, detectives were finally able to get a definitive ID. The body in the house was Melinda Holder.
She didn't have any enemies. She was too kind to have enemies.
It came as a shock to her oldest daughter, Glenda Pierre. She says her mother was very social, loved to cook, and had a lot of friends.
Every bone in her body was kind, and that's the type of person that she was.
She says she loved her family, a family that has grown extensively over the years. Melinda was a mother to 5 children, now 19 grandchildren, and 38 great-grandchildren.
She lives through all of us and through all of them as well.
Detective Milliken says she is determined to get Holder's family those answers, going through thousands of pages of documents from the case. She says Holder was likely dead a few days before the fire, but the medical examiner could not determine a cause of death due to the fire damage to the remains. Though her death is not being deemed a murder, it is listed as a suspicious death.
Somebody somewhere knows something. That's not a question. That's a fact.
She says she has developed persons of interest in investigating this case, but is looking for more from the community, especially those who can fill in the timeline in the year of 1989. Where was Melinda Holder, and who was she with from that last time she was seen in January until her body was found in December? Detective Milliken is certain someone had to have seen her.
Hope God put it on your heart to come forward and tell whatever it is that you know. We loved our mother, our grandkids, great-grandkids love her, and she was somebody.
If you know anything about the death of Melinda Holder, contact Crime Stoppers at the number on your screen. Katie Jeffries, First Coast News, on your side. Ralph Anderson's children say he was the pillar of their family, a veteran father and grandfather who was just doing his job. He was cleaning the Village Saloon in Orange Park when he was shot multiple times. Now, more than 40 years later, his children want answers and to make sure he is not forgotten. A stuffed, handwritten case file at the Orange Park Police Department tells the story of the death of Ralph Anderson.
It's always in the back of your mind what actually happened and who actually did something like this.
But his children, Carolyn Berry and Willis Anderson, don't like to think about his death, rather the life he led.
He was a great provider, protector. He loved us and we knew it.
A father of 4, grandfather to 7, they say their father loved his family and especially loved music.
As we grew up in our neighborhood, all the music came from our house. All the kids and everything would come to our house to hear music.
Now the case turns 40 years old.
Yeah, I feel like it's already forgotten.
It was January 13th, 1985. Ralph Anderson owned his own cleaning business, and his wife told officers he left for work like any normal day.
She said she last saw him at around 4:15 in the morning when he left to actually go work at Village Saloon.
But when the owner arrived just after 11 a.m., he found Ralph Anderson dead on the floor in a pool of blood.
Nothing seemed to be out of place or missing. It looked like it was not a robbery that took place.
In 1985, it was the first murder in Orange Park in 3 years. Detective Gregory Swim says the first investigators believed Ralph Anderson knew his attacker. Putting the pieces of the scene together, the door was unlocked, so Ralph likely let the person in. There was no sign of a struggle, and he was shot in the back several times, with all of the shots fired coming from a .38 revolver. So police believe there was only one shooter. In a somewhat stroke of luck, Detective Swim says reports show a Clay County deputy remembered driving past the Village Saloon that same morning, around 9 or 9:30.
He noted seeing a brown truck at Village Saloon, as well as a light blue colored sedan. The brown truck belonged to the victim. As far as the light colored sedan, we do not know who that belonged to at this time.
The light blue sedan with a large CB antenna on the trunk remains a major question mark in this case. Could that have been the shooter's car? Detective Swim says investigators continued to work it for years, though eventually it went cold. Now, 4 decades later, Detective Swim says they have not given up. They are seeing if fingerprints from the scene could be reprocessed by FDLE. Still, he believes their best hope at solving this cold case will come from the community.
We'd love to get the community's help if they know anything and they've heard anything throughout the years.
And though it has been 40 years, Anderson's children say it is not too late to come forward.
We need to know what happened and why it did happen, even if it just doesn't make sense. I think it will give us some kind of, closure to know what happened.
If you know anything about the murder of Ralph Anderson, contact the Orange Park Police Department at the number on your screen. Katie Jeffries, First Coast News, on your side.
This has been a First Coast News Plus special presentation. Unsolved. Stream your first choice for local news every day on First Coast News Plus. First Coast News, on your side.